Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here when you're with my continuing playthrough of Aggressors Ancient Rome. And I want to thank you all for those of you who have had your patience with this game, both with me learning it and learning it as well as infrequently playing it. We've had our disasters out in the east. We want to get these guys have fully done their movement for this turn. Okay, just checking. Like saying that we are having I'm really right now wondering what to do with this guy. Having to check things. Do I move up to here and try to form another city, or do I form a city back here? Try to give myself more time. Think to here. While we see about moving up. New units now, mentioning that. Let's see. They're building. No. Well, we could use. Okay, they can get to there this turn. That's good. Oh, mine, blacksmith, mine, iron mine. We are doing pretty good with iron, so I don't know if I want to spend repair monies. What are we building here? We'll finish building. Okay, that's what I want is armies. What army type? Oh, they're building something as well. Well, okay, another army. Okay, good. Probably light troops. Okay, I'm gonna leave the armies in this region. So, new army's gonna go east along North Africa. Old armies get to stay in Asia Minor. Okay. Shot each other up a bit more. Oh, sunk them. I am worried about the clash with Rome. Maybe I shouldn't be, but taking out the Seleucids will really help me. have to sort of rebuild that region. Almost thought they were going to sink each other again because they're so badly shot at. Yep, Rome is losing its fleet. Which both encourages me and discourages me. Encouraging me in that their fleet doesn't seem unbeatable, but then again, I'm facing the same people. This is right there. Okay, good. We have our army now. Okay, trade proposal. Your offer. That's what they want. They want to give me all of... Wow. Athens asks for... Oh, no, you asked for from Athens. Okay. Lumber. Influence. Gold, iron. Okay. We've got 500. They need people. Okay. So we want to sort of keep Athens in the game. So they've got a lot. So, let's see if they'll do this. Okay. Pontus, they are putting that. They want iron. We've got a fair amount of iron, not as much as we do people, but and even more coal. So let's give them, well, 3. And 2. Who's demanded from you? No. Caravans are attacked by Carthage. Okay. Now, I know I was planning on using him to move some units, or a unit, east, and there. Fleets are scaring me a bit, so I think we're going to see about using our road system that we built. Though I think we will put on the yeah, I think we'll move him up to help rebuild Asia Minor. Okay, yeah, you get to here. And Okay, so we're strung out. We've got three units moving that way. Yeah, I think we're going to go with Asia Minor with you. Let's first move you up to this way. Okay, so that's getting them moving around in good measures. I want to keep doing self-heal to get these units in their best shape to face from Pontus or anybody else who may decide to cause trouble over here. Okay, so yeah, we have what? 2 Phalanx, 1 skirmishers, and a cavalry over here. What we need to do is have a couple more city-states, I think, and loyal ones would be nice. Awfully far over, but what? Okay, Peltus, yeah. They're okay, we've got 2 of those, but I think we want another Hoplite. Or Oplites, as I think the correct pronunciation may be. Oplites, is that right? Oplites. Oplites, as opposed to hoplite. Hoplite, or oplite, like dropping the H. Oplites. Not sure. Yeah. Achievement unlocked, military duty. How interesting. Okay. So we have that going. Let's come over here. Okay, these guys repair city. Yes. We want to do that. And we are going to lose some more territory there. Veronese, well, maybe even like right where we're at. Build town. Euranthia? Okay. Build a town. Help supply the movements here. Okay, come on. I'm having problems just because it's not dealing with my multiple screens well. Okay, you can get up to Berenice. No, you didn't move. You thought I was clicking on it, I guess. Okay. I mean to get you guys forward. All right. Okay. We can get them there before we have too many losses. I think that army will do well. Ah, yes. Okay. Well, let's no, we're not going to found a city. Build road. Hopefully to better link and develop the Solimus. Okay. I'm looking at some possible. Increases happiness, defense, stockade. Trading. We want to do trading. Get trading going. All right. Read a really good book on Legion versus Phalanx, and so is comparing those two, and it was written by a very interesting guy, modern day soldier as well as a reenactor, and not a traditional, shall we say. I don't want to diminish his real credentials. Not a traditional academic. I don't think from reading it that he was, deep into the Greek and Latin languages. But from the book, he consulted with some experts on some of the nuances of some of the language. What could this mean? Either in Latin or Greek, various meanings of descriptions of things. So, and they specifically very, very much went in and looked at the battles in which the Legion fought the Phalanx. And as he says, one thing good about studying this is you can read every single thing that we have, original source material, on the Legion and the Phalanx. The really bad thing about it is there's not that much on it. Meaning, because if we were to, I want to see someone really consume all the original source material on World War II. Historical archives, unit archives, biographies, autobiographies, people, original source material. Not just, if I wrote a book now, but I mean all the original. No, you can't. I mean, there is no possible way. All the documents in whatever archives for Japan, all the U.S. documents, all the documents that were written during World War II by the U.S. military armed forces, and try to read all that stuff. And if you're including, not just what's going on the home front, but, production numbers and whatever, but you can come and read, all there is about sort of the legions and all there is about the Phalanx that's written. It is a doable thing. And then, compare them. And so this is where, because I actually listened to it as an audio book. So that's why I'm questioning the hoplites, which is the pronunciation I was taught in school, as it were, and oblites, which is the one that they were using. New technology, indomitable. Okay, good. Okay, so now we have some more options, but the first, I think there were 5 battles of significance that they have good literature on, contemporary literature on battles between Legion and hoplites. The first 2, I believe, are the ones that clearly the Phalanx won. And the last one, because there were sort of 2 campaigns that sort of happened. Last 1 or 2, and it sort of gets a bit murky on which, but the Legion was winning. And sort of, I would say, the conclusion is that the the author very much looked at the defensive nature of the Phalanx, and he's especially correct when you're looking at like the peltasts, light units and that kind of thing, and horse units and other things. It's very much of a defensive nature. I still, from my, again, reading and education, see the Phalanx as a sort of slow but sure offensive unit, and Alexander definitely used it that way. So it's not, in my mind, as clearly a defensive, but it is a very rigid formation, and it is not a flexible formation. So when you can use it, and it's a, I would also say it is a single arm. I mean, you can say that about almost anything, but where, like the peltasts that we were, seeing out here, he goes into, he talks about peripherally about a lot of the other unit types, including the peltasts, because later Phalanx are sort of called peltasts because of their small shields, not so much because they pelt, because that's sort of what actually they are named after. But those units that threw javelins and slung stones at slingers were missile troops, but they also were, as you can watch in Field of Glory 2, they're also hand-to-hand fighters as well, and so those are both artillery, if you will, firepower, and hand-to-hand type troops, and the Legionnaires, and they talk about how the Legion changes over time as well. But they have the pilums, throw the heavy infantry have the pilums that you throw their sort of, if you will, a javelin, carry basically two of those, a light and a heavy, and then go in with a short sword. So those do have a multi troop type. And again, you can look at the Field of Glory series, and we're dealing with Persian type units that are troops carrying a big heavy shield that actually sticks in the ground, and you can shoot arrows behind it, and then once that sort of weakens the enemy enough, then they're the main heavy infantry as well, and go in with their sword. So you do have multi-role type units. But if you were to just go, oh, we've got this Phalanx out there, and it's a big one, once it's formed up, it's slow enough to avoid, and if you have a large enough, effective enough army, you can avoid it and sort of try to cut it off, and death by 1,000 cuts, or maybe literally death by 1,000 arrows, shooting at it, because they talk about where one situation in which they formed a big hollow square and were moving somewhat successfully, I would say. And I'm sort of analyzing what the author said, but the author's analyzing very slim accounts of the historical writers, sort of these guys, what they wrote about it then. Big hollow square type formation moving back to their camp, and more or less at the camp they thought, to whatever degree, they would have a security. And they were taking fairly heavy losses from archers as they were moving in this formation. But at some point, because they're very valuable, they had moved their elephants into the center of the this big square. I'm talking huge square, the way they describe it. That either they purposefully or just incidentally targeted the elephants enough with the arrows, and they got the elephants to rampage, as it were. So they broke up the formation as as your so-called friendly elephants start all not specifically necessarily trying to kill you, but just rampaging out of the way. You break formation, and then the whole formation just crumbles as everyone starts to flee for the safety of the camp. And that's when the enemy lighter, more flexible units just pounces on it and does sort of the most killing at that point after the formation is broken. So had they kept, had they made a different choice on the elephants, they probably could have saved the Phalanx as a thing. I don't know if that would have been a win in the battle terms, but it would have not been the dreadful loss that it was. So, looking at that, you have, if you have a Phalanx, in my opinion, with supporting arms in reasonable numbers compared to the enemy, and then you're on the right type of terrain, I think, and including, I'm taking very seriously what this author says, the Phalanx is the best unit type. But because enough of the world isn't the right type of terrain, and that you are able at times to attack units that aren't formed up in the Phalanx formation, meaning at one of the battles they described one of the wings is moving into support of the other wing, but it's moving in sort of column of movement instead of formed up as a proper Phalanx, and it gets impacted by the side with the Legion, and those units, and I was a bit surprised about, and they really didn't look at the Spartans so much, but I was surprised at how poorly the author thought the Greeks were trained to use the short sword. That sort of, I always took that as, yes, the sarissa, or the because the sarissa is the long pike of the sort of Phalanx. The shorter, oh man, or maybe even getting these confused. The shorter one of the hoplites, the hoplites, that they're all sort of hoplites, but you sort of put it out there, separate them. The shorter spear is sort of the primary big long-range stabbing kind of thing, but enough of descriptions that I got going through school talking about generally Greek on Greek violence that they became sort of shoving matches close in, and shoving matches don't work. This is their I know the professor who did and who recited Greek at us, and which I complete loss. Yeah, I know he's at a university and we were studying the classical world, but the students none of us had any Greek in us, but or Koine Greek particularly, or whatever. But so he did read a lot of it in the original source material. Now, how good is his translations? I don't know. I'm presuming pretty good. But we know the nuance of languages changes over time, and when they were looking at this author was looking at a multi-hundred year period from sometime after Alexander to when the last battle of the Phalanx versus the Legion, plus some time some of the authors were writing 50 years later or something, and he was also looking at some of them that they believe that they were taken, multiple authors were using from the same original source. So, but language over all that time, and then also as we look at here, over a region, you know, Greek used in Greece versus Greek used in Alexandria versus the Greek used in the Greek colonies in Italy, you know, I'm sure there's got to be a difference, as well as a difference between colonies established by Athens versus colonies established by Sparta. You know, they're going to use different Greek. You know, I just know this without the author saying this. I just know that there, you know, I don't think there was such a thing as a Greek dictionary. I don't know that there was a dictionary before Samuel Johnson writes his sort of famous dictionary. So I know this on language, that it's fluid. And so it's, you know, interpreting things. So if you're having a sort of like a rugby, you know, the rugby scrum that they're sort of shoving match, that's sort of described about how often the hoplites, hoplites, were fighting each other at some point. And so you're no longer using that kind of situation. You're no longer using the, I'm going to go with spear because I'm referring to the shorter one. You're no longer using that as a weapon. You're now shield on shield impact, and then you're trying to stab around the shield and around the enemy shield at the enemy there. But it's sort of an off balance shoving match. And so I would have thought they would have been better with the short sword, but the author really takes it, and I'm not disputing his, as an overall thing, because he's looking at it not any one individual soldier or anything, or one individual mercenary company or city states generally used to the and training with a sword, where the Romans were, that was their sort of primary weapon, was the short sword. So that the hoplites, the Phalanx soldiers, being impacted without being able to form up and use your big pikes, are very vulnerable as he sees it. And even with the ability to rapidly form a cohesive shield wall, not an in-depth, you know, phalanx or hoplite. I know I'm going back and forth with that, but formation, but you know, again, if you watch. I haven't watched the Viking series other than a couple episodes, but you can look at, which I have seen, the Last Kingdom series, you know, form the sort of Viking shield wall kind of thing. They didn't seem to have any real thought as a training session to try to form that shield wall behind their shields and fight just with their short swords. So if you can, you know, catch that formation. So even though it was like a coherent formation on a reasonable terrain type footing without being formed up in a phalanx, they were incredibly vulnerable. And will also say an element of it very well may be a mental vulnerability as opposed to an actual, meaning they're so trained and ingrained in fighting in their formation that anything other than that in and of itself scares them, and they are already sort of lost the battle, if you will, in their mind once they see a large enough group of enemies. Not like, hey, there's 200 of us and there's 20 guys sort of coming towards us, run away. No, it's like, oh, there's 200 of us and there's 200 of them, and they're coming at us yelling, screaming, and charging, and we are not, you know, formed up in the proper formation. They've already maybe lost the battle in their mind. And so long as the enemy carries through at a reasonable ability, they've already lost. Now, of course, the enemy may all trip and fall in a ditch that they didn't see as they ran at them. You know, I mean, something can happen, or they could get attacked in the flank by a horse or something before they attack. You know, something can happen to change the battle, but so long as nothing happens, they've already lost if the enemy's driving and dedicated enough. And so it just really sort of over time that the flexibility of the legion wins over the inflexibility of the hoplite or phalanx formations. So my thought going many years ago, looking at this, if you're building an army, and because of the sort of sizes of the armies and the sizes of needing to do because it's highly densely packed. Had the, whether it's, and he talks about how that there was very much even into the sort of late period of the well, let's see. I know you may use this. We're going to do patronage, which will get us obedience. Required resources. Okay, yeah. Oh. No, we need to click right on that to select. Okay. Will you cancel peace with German tribes because of the demands of the Roman Republic? No. Okay. Trade proposal. We are offered a trade proposal with specific demands from Epirus 15 peoples for all of that. A bit more expensive than some of the other ones. Okay. Was rejected, so that was too low. Okay. Was signed. Okay. Cancel. No, we're not going to do. That in the late Phalanx period, there were still either from some city-states and or some mercenary companies. There were still the earlier hoplite or oplite types, and some of the difference is this is a big heavy shield, and the and sort of because of different authors using different things, the I'm trying to, it's not, I don't know if it's specifically Peltas, but whatever. The smaller shield, the this one here really requires a shorter spear because it needs to be a single-handed spear, and he has his hand gripped on the shield, and it's a fairly big shield. And even though there are maybe abilities to rest it sort of on your leg, it really needs to be sort of held out. Because again, the author is a reenactor. I've done reenacting for the 18th century. And that's why I sort of say it's, if you're just a guy sitting in a little room somewhere reading ancient or modern works, it's really different to put on the kit to try to live a little bit in. And I've done that a bit. For 18th century Highlanders, again, sort of what I've done, and including going to the original terrain in Scotland and looking around at that, and how it would work, as well as talking to people who did it more than I did as well. And I mean, did some like primary original research on things, working in literally some of the highest ranking or the most in-depth researchers at the time of some of the details of things like that. So I've been part of that as experimental archaeology is sort of the term, and like one of the Peter MacDonald I got to know a bit many years ago now, but dealing with period dyes for tartans. So everyone knows tartans, plaids, bright colors, right? Well, yeah, but they were dealing with the ones that dyes from the materials that were found in Scotland primarily. They didn't really import much there, and definitely didn't have the modern metallic type dyes. So various fading situations, how good would it have looked originally, and how would it could have looked even though, after, for washing it, and how it would fade, and so what to, what it really would have looked like, and they, doing various samples that they found and analyzing what the dyes were, what vegetable matter or whatever that they were made of to create the stuff. So I've done some of this and just sort of saying, so I know that if somebody's going in there and doing the research, wearing the kit, spending some time with some of the reenactors, both for the Phalanx and for the Roman Legion, so he knows what he's talking about, as well as being a relatively fit former soldier. in the Middle East wars currently. So, it's not just, oh, well, it's so heavy for him, he's not as strong as they were way back then. Well, he may not be as strong as they were way back then, but he is sort of modern military strong and that kind of thing. So they went down to a smaller shield that was strapped to the arm, but maybe as this is sort of showing, but that the hand would extend out past the shield, so for the phalanx, so that you could have a longer pike that has two hands on it, and you still use the shield as a smaller situation. But this earlier style was continuing to be used well past the days of Alexander, and I can see a couple of reasons for that. One, it's the thing you're trained in, and so if you're trained in it, you're equipped in it, from a particular city-state, you do that, you're going to continue to use it. Two, this type has some benefits. It has better physical protection, especially with a larger shield and dealing with the enemy's peltasts, whether those are arrows, slingers, or javelins. Having a better shield and that type of thing particularly, you can do a lot better against, people just going, hey, we're just going to stand over here and shoot arrows, and if you come towards us in a tight formation, so meaning you're not going to run at anybody, you're going to slowly walk towards us, we're just going to keep backing up and shooting at you all day. And so this would work better. And I could also see this trying to be a bit more of a shield wall type situation, and not just a big deep type, big deep tight. I gotta learn to speak if I'm trying to do that as a thing. Formation that we see with the phalanx. So there's very good reasons to keep it around, but there's also, of course, very good reasons that, generally speaking, using the standard type of formations, the phalanx are going to defeat the hoplites almost every time. So, yeah, there's reasons to do the sort of more modern, if you will. Oh, you've almost completed your movement. Okay. But I just find all this fascinating. Uh-oh, lost in the storm. Damn it. So we lost that whole... Damn. We lost all those settlers. That's what I'm sometimes worried about happening a little more than as we just had that happen. That's the first time. Okay, well, we've lost a peasant, so we're gonna then need to probably take those peasants that are on Cyprus and use them, because I was going to continue to use them. Not so much. I think we'd mostly finished constructing the situation here on Cyprus, but use them as, I was going to continue to use them as infrastructure and other sort of building troops, but I want to get a couple of more city-states up here. We'll just use these, hopefully, to transfer them over. Well, this episode's gone on a long time. I know I talked a lot. I hope it was interesting. Fascinating book, Legion versus Phalanx. Well, by this point, you probably know that most all of this fascinates me. And so, not just Alexander or the classical world, but we could get into the 30 Years' War and the English Civil War with pike and shot, and I could start talking about all those different types of unit formations and things. So yeah, we could continue to dive deep everywhere. So come along for the ride with me. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Love to hear your comments. See you next time for more historical gaming.